Let me introduce myself. My name is Sai, teaching Java from more than 12 years, handle more than 500 plus batches from 2007 to till date. I'm in the part of the training and currently working as a senior architect in Wells Fargo. So I'm a Sun certified Java programmer. That's enough, I think so. So that is overall my experience and all. So today I would like to discuss about what is the importance of the Spring Boot microservices. Remember, in our current market is purely based on microservices only. It is a hot cake or a hot requirement. So whatever the interviews you are going on Java side, the people are looking for microservices. Whether you have an experience on microservices or if you have a knowledge on microservices or not, the people is looking for this term microservices with Spring Boot. If you have a knowledge, even though if you don't have a working experience on microservices also, you are eligible to get a job. Many of my students, almost I have 3 years experience on microservices development, the same 3 years experience on training also, providing the training on microservices as well as implemented different projects on microservices from the 3.
Sir, you're not audible, sir.
Sorry guys, yeah, sorry, my network connection lost actually. So now I'm able to, yeah, I'm able to connect. So am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So microservices plays an important role in the development process as of now. So currently, what are the projects which are implemented on MVC architecture model view controller architecture? The projects which are implemented on the variety of domains like banking domain or insurance domain or healthcare domain, whatever the domain it may be. We already implemented different projects on MVC architecture model. But now, due to heavy load, whatever the current system we have, in the market due to heavy load, that doesn't match, that doesn't handle uh, the current load of the users right now in the market. So tremendous load is there, huge amount of network traffic currently in the market. So it doesn't face the requirement. So whatever the requirement it may be, so we are not going to manage this kind of load with our existing architecture model. So before going to talk about the Spring Boot, what is Spring Boot and all, I would like to give a small introduction about why you need to go for microservices. First, we'll talk about why microservices. Okay. First, we'll talk about what is microservices, what is the importance of microservices. Then after that, we are going to talk about what is Spring Boot and what is an importance of Spring Boot that we'll discuss in more detail. Okay. So many people don't know about uh, why microservices, why we need to go for the market, why these microservices are more popular currently in the market as compared to the Spring Boot, other whatever the things we have. So that understanding is very important, guys, because this is also a common interview question. Why we need to go for the microservices? Explain the benefits of microservice and comparing to other architecture model. So these are the common type of questions in the interview also. So in my course, I will cover what are the different interview questions which will come from the different concepts. That also will be the part of the course. Okay, all right. So now let us talk about what is a microservice. A microservice is a self-independent component. A microservice is a self-independent component. Okay, and it follows single responsibility principle. A microservice is a self-independent component and it follows single responsibility principle. And it follows what? A single responsibility principle. So that is the meaning of a microservice, guys. It is a self-independent component and it follows single responsibility principle. So that is the definition of microservice. Microservice is a technology or is a microservice is an architecture. What? A microservice is a software architecture model decomposing our existing software system into many components or micro components. Many components or micro components are nothing but which encapsulates a single functionality, a single business functionality which encapsulates such component is nothing but a micro component or a microservice based component. So when I am saying the terminology here, why microservices, what is the specialty of microservices in the market? So this knowledge or this understanding is very, very important, guys. Okay, so a self-independent component, and it follows a single responsibility principle means everything will be a single, guys. Everything will be a single. So when I am talking about single responsibility principle means it will run in its own server. It is having its own JVM. It is having its own process. It is having its own memory allocation, and it is having its own database also. Everything is having its own, guys. So that's the concept of single responsibility principle. So a microservice is a self-independent component, and it follows a single responsibility principle. So that's the definition of microservice. So is a microservice is a technology? Is a microservice is a technology or a architecture? So it is a software architecture model. So our existing software applications implemented on any technology like Java, .NET, etc. follows monolithic architecture model. So that is the main important point, guys. Our existing software applications on any technology like Java, .NET, etc. follows monolithic architecture model. So what is monolithic architecture model? What is an importance of this monolithic architecture? Then why we people are going for microservices model? What is the problems in the monolithic? That is very, very important, because whatever the MVC architecture we are currently using, that is outdated. No one is using MVC architecture nowadays in the market. Model view controller architecture model is purely outdated. First of all, no monolithic architecture. What are the existing software systems are there? Those are started converting into microservices. Number of companies realized that microservices is the best fit for the today's market according to the requirement. So that is a very, very important point what you need to understand, guys. Okay. So remember, guys, don't use your microphones. Please mute all of your microphones, please. Don't make any audio communication with me. Any doubt you can type in the chat. I will give a time for all of you people today. Don't be curious to ask any question right now. Concentrate on the class. Listen the demo today. After the demo, I will give time to answer all of your questions. Okay. So that is what the thing, right? So monolithic architecture model is the model what we followed from beginning onward for developing your software system. For developing the software systems. So let's see how this monolithic architecture model works. I will explain with a small simple diagram. Imagine this is a simple server machine. This is a server machine. So inside the server machine, assume we configured Tomcat server. We configured Tomcat server. Tomcat server is nothing but your server, web server. Inside the Tomcat server, let's assume we deployed our application called IRCTC application. We deployed our application called IRCTC application. IRCTC application deployed in our server. Okay, so now assume this application contains different functionalities, right? So that means for booking a ticket, canceling the ticket, checking the PNR status, so many things you can do with IRCTC. So a server machine is nothing but it is a system, it is a computer system. There we installed or we set up our server software. In that we hosted our application, means we deployed our application IRCTC assume currently. So the monolithic architecture model says that according to the monolithic architecture model, your entire project is deployed into the var file. Your entire project is deployed into var file or year file, something like that. Generally in your project development, your project, what you developed on the technology, like a Spring framework, or that can be a Struts framework, or that can be a Servlets or JSPs, whatever it may be, the whole application, the whole project is packaged into var file, web archive resources file, or year file, enterprise archive resources file. And this file is deployed, and this file is deployed in your server, Tomcat server, WebLogic server, something like that. So monolithic architecture, according to this model, all functionalities, means what are the services offered by the IRCTC, entire code, the entire code is deployed into the same server. The entire code means booking a ticket, canceling a ticket, checking the PNR status, checking the trains which are available for the given date. So many functionalities are there, right? Different services. Entire code is packaged into the var file or EL file, and that is deployed into your server, installed into the server. Now users from different location, users from different location communicates with the server, from different location. They are going to communicate, means from different places, different users their web browsers, with the help of the web browsers. They will connect with your IRCTC application, request submitted to this IRCTC application. So every user who log in into the IRCTC is not for booking the ticket. Every user who log in into the IRCTC is not for booking the ticket, guys. Some people will check the PNR status. Some people will check how many trains which are available for the date of journey and what are the tickets, how many tickets are currently available right now, and what was the price of the ticket, and what was the train route information for the different things. For canceling the ticket, different users will be there, right? All users are not going to book a ticket, guys. That is the main important thing. People from different places, like you and me, these are the different users from different places, submits a request to the same server. All request was coming to the same server. Why it is coming to the same server, guys? Because the entire application deployed in the same server. The people who want to cancel the ticket, the people who want to book a ticket, the people who want to check the PNR status, all requests was hitting the same server. So what happens at this time? As the number of users increases, the load on the server increases. As the number of users increases, the load on the server increases. So server will down. To overcome this problem, in monolithic architecture model, what you people are doing means they will set up a server. They will set up a server separately, guys. That means to distribute the load, they will set up one more server. Again, in that server machine, they will set up a server software. Again, in that server software, they will deploy the application. Again, in that server software, they will deploy the application. The same application, IRCTC. Like that, where the server missions are configured, like assume one server mission is configured in Hyderabad. So the people who are nearer to Hyderabad, depends on the distance calculation and all, who are nearer to Hyderabad, those requests come to this Hyderabad server mission. And one server mission is set up in the Mumbai. Who are nearer to Mumbai location, those users request goes to the server mission. Like that, how many server missions you need to configure, guys? There is no number for that, right? How many server missions you have to configure? No number for that. This is up to your requirement and how many number of users are using your application across the globe. So as the demand increases, you have to maintain the load also. Load is very important. Load balancing. So in the monolithic architecture systems, load management is a challenging task, guys. And configuring this hardware everything is a manual operation. This is known as vertical scaling. So what do you mean by vertical scaling, guys? In vertical scaling means it is a process of configuring the server mission manually by installing the server setup and by deploying the application. Everything you have to do the setup manually, so that you have to set up the server missions in the different places, we have to handle it. Depends on the load. So that is a very important point, guys. Clear what I'm saying? So what happens at this time? Whenever this number of server missions increases, the people who are nearer to this server mission location, those people request go to the server mission. Similarly, other server missions. Like assume in India, in the different places I configured 10 server missions. In the India, in the different places I configured 10 server missions. What happens at this time? Load is distributed. All requests were not coming to the same server mission. Nearby locations, the request will go. So this setup is more costliest process. More amount you need to pay. As the demand increases, you have to set up this server missions to manage the load. The question comes in the mind is, when the demand increases, when the demand decreases. Suppose, let's answer to the question. You are booking the Tatkal ticket. Tatkal ticket booking time is started, let's say, from 10 o'clock. 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock. This time is very peak time. If any festivals are there, if you are planning to book the ticket for the festival season, more amount of load will come. After 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock, load is reduced. Same point, whenever festival seasons will come. So, the point here is, your application, your technology must be supported for horizontal scaling, not vertical scaling. That means, what do you mean by that? Horizontal scaling means whenever demand increases, means whenever load is increases, you have to increase instances of your application. Means you have to start up a server separately. Instead of setting up the server mission, separately, you have to increase the server instances, guys. So horizontal scaling to be supported, not vertical scaling. Monolithic architecture model follows vertical scaling, supports only to vertical scaling. That means whether you are using .NET or whether you are using PHP or whether you are using Java or whether you are using Python, whether you are using Ruby and Rails, whatever it may be, your software application built on monolithic architecture model only. That is what up to now we developed the software products. So what was the problem in this monolithic architecture model, guys? Load management is the challenging task in the monolithic. The second thing is tight coupling is there in the monolithic architecture model. Tight coupling, dependency between the components. Dependency between the components increases. Whenever tight coupling increases, development time, maintenance of your application, management is very difficult. Identifying the bugs or troubleshooting the bugs is very difficult, guys, in monolithic. Now tell me, assume this server machine went down, guys. Assume this server machine went down. Assume in Hyderabad the server machine went down. What happens at this time? The whole IRCTC application went down, right? That means these user requests routed to another server machine nearer to Hyderabad. Assume Mumbai is the another server machine. So it will take some amount of time the request reach to this Mumbai server. So the load is increases on this server machine again. So whenever if your system is down, the whole application is down. And also maintenance, guys. Maintenance is a challenging task. Maintenance means adding the new features or modifying the existing features. That is a very challenging task because system is tightly coupled. Monolithic architecture is always, whatever the technology you are using, doesn't matter, Java, .NET, anything. Monolithic architecture, of course, you are writing in the multiple modules. Okay, you are creating different modules will be there in your project. So all modules at the end of the day to be packaged into war file or year file or something like that, right? Everything to be deployed in the same server only. So whenever if the server went down, you cannot access your application. Tight coupling. The third point is no freedom from the language. Means who want to integrate with this monolithic applications, there is no freedom. Suppose if this is implemented on Java, only Java people can communicate with this application. If it is implemented on Python, only Python will communicate with this. So it is language based thing. That is the problem in the monolithic. So that's why to overcome this problem, people followed different approaches to solve the problems from monolithic architecture. People went to entire architecture model. People went to MVC architecture model, 3-tier architecture, 2-tier architecture. Different models came into the picture in the middle also. All are having same problem. Nothing level of complexity, nothing. The problems are not yet resolved, not much. So that's why to overcome these problems coming from the monolithic architecture model, what the only one solution is break down the whole application into small pieces. Break down your project into small pieces. Each piece is known as a micro component. Just like in your chemistry, molecules is the best example for that. If you see from the microscope, if you see any organism with the microscope, you see different molecules are there. So many molecules. The molecules will be independent. It is having its own state. It doesn't depend on it. So everything is purely independent. Every molecule. So ultimately, what happens here? All molecules together form a bond, ionic bond or covalent bond. The bond formation will be done at the runtime. Similarly, in our software application also, we are decomposing our whole application, our whole project into small pieces. Each piece is nothing but a micro component. It encapsulates a single logic, single functionality. And all these components are integrated or communicated in the loose coupled way. In the loose coupled way means there is no tight dependency between one component with another component. There is no tight dependency. Okay. So that's the power of microservice architecture. That's why we people need to go for microservice architecture to handle the current load. Why load is very high nowadays, guys? Why load is very much high nowadays? Do you know any answer, solid answer for this? Because of smartphones only. See, before 2009 and after 2009, see the world. Before 2009 also we have a mobile. Those mobiles are just for making a calls, sending SMS, playing a small games only. Those are not a smartphone. Those are just a mobile phone. Now everyone is using smartphones. Smartphone means it's just like a mini computer. It is equal to the power of computer only. You can do whatever you want in the smartphone. So because of smartphones only, heavy load is coming. Heavy load. Because every user is having a smartphone now. Because smartphones are available from a very low price to attract all type of people, all categories of people to attract. It is available in the best prices. So everyone is buying the mobile, smartphone. Every man is having a smartphone nowadays. Because of this only, tremendous load increases. This load cannot be handled, or this load cannot be managed with monolithic model. This is handled with microservice architecture only, the current load. So that is the most important point what you need to understand, guys. Microservice architecture means decomposing the system into many pieces. Like an example, this is one server. This is one server. In this, we deployed a microservice component called booking service. This is one microservice component, booking service. That means it encapsulates the single functionality. That means it knows only how to book a ticket. We are not going to write a logic how to check the PNR status, how to cancel the ticket. These logics we are not going to write it here. Booking service means how to book a ticket. That's all. That logic only. A single functionality. A microservice is nothing but a component, a software component or a software application which follows a single responsibility principle. That means it runs in the own server. It is having its own server, and also it is having its own database. It is having its own database. It is having its own JVM. It is having its own heap area, whatever it may be. Everything is single only. So similarly, let's observe here. Like that, for cancel, like that. For like that, we have a different services. This is cancel service. This is PNR service. So what happens at this time, guys? Instead of deploying the whole application into the same server, we are breaking into mini components, micro components. So every component is having its own business logic, single functionality. Booking service knows how to book a ticket. Cancel service knows how to cancel the ticket. PNR service knows how to check the PNR information. So what happens at this time, guys? Every service is having its own database. We must have a single database. Every microservice is having its own database. So there is no centralized database concept, guys. Okay. And also for microservices, we are always using low memory footprint servers only. That means Tomcat, Jetty, Netty, Undertow. These are very lightweight servers. Low memory footprint servers. We are not going for WebLogic. We are not going for IBM WebSphere, Glassfish. These are heavyweight servers. Very big servers these are. These are for monolithic architectures only. MVC based application, the old style of application. For microservices, no need to go for that servers. No need to go for those big servers. And also databases also same story. Don't go for very big databases. You can go for MySQL, or you can go for Postgre database, PostgreSQL. You can use MongoDB, NoSQL database. You can use Cassandra database, like that. It's up to your requirement and choice of your software model. So what is the benefit of this architecture is, the primary benefit is the people who want to make a request for booking a ticket, the users who want to make a ticket booking, that request comes to booking service. The people who want to cancel the ticket, that request goes to cancel service. The people who want to check the PNR status, their request comes to PNR service. So what happens at this time? The load is distributed. The load is distributed. Performance is good. That is the first point. Second point is, whenever if number of users request increases for the particular service, if more number of users are booking the ticket, what happens at this time? You can apply the horizontal scaling. You can apply the horizontal scaling. That means, what do you mean by horizontal scaling? Horizontal scaling means what? Again, you have to start a new server. You have to start the new server under the different port number. Assume it is started on the port number 8080. Now you have to start another server on the port number 8081, a new port number. Again, the same booking service is running in the another server. Like that, you can increase server instances based on the load for that particular service. This is horizontal scaling. Whenever load is reduced, again you can destroy those server instances whenever load is reduced. So this concept is known as horizontal scaling. Scale up, scale down. Depends on the load. You can manage it. So this is an excellent point in the microservices role. So we are not going to increase all the services, guys. We are not going to increase all the services. Which service is having the huge demand, only that load is increases on that particular service. Other services remain same only. Depends on the requirement, which service is having a load, we are going to increase it to different instances. Means you have to start up, the server will start up, and again the same service will be deployed into that server under the different port numbers. So this is one of the benefit. Another benefit is, imagine due to some problem, if booking service went down, booking service went down, it doesn't affect on other services. Means it doesn't make your whole application down. Only booking cannot be done. The people still can go for canceling the ticket. The people can go for PNR status. Other services are still work. The people cannot book the ticket. So, and also there is a concept called self-healing. There is a concept called self-healing in microservices. If any microservice went down, within the fraction of seconds, a new service will start again under the different port number. A new server is started again. Your booking service will up again. So no need to call the technician, no need to contact the network administrator, no need to raise the ticket to fix whatever the problems are coming. Okay, guys, that is very important point what you need to understand. And another important thing is technology, guys. Technology is the another important thing. Suppose imagine this booking service I developed on Java. What happens if Python application want to communicate with this booking service? What happens if Android application want to communicate with this booking service? What happens if iOS application want to communicate with booking service? No problem, you can communicate, because microservices are built on RESTful based. Microservices are built on RESTful based, or microservices are based on RESTful based and SOAP based. Some people will use SOAP based web services, and some people will use RESTful based web services. Some people will use SOAP based web services, and some people will use RESTful based web services, guys. Okay, so that is the most important thing. RESTful or SOAP depends on the requirement. 95% people will go for RESTful only. It's a very rare scenarios people will go for SOAP based. You can use anything in the microservices development. Okay, that is the reason why we people need to go for microservices architecture model, and what were the problem coming in our monolithic architecture model. Why the demand is good for microservices, we understand up to now. Anyhow, I will explain all these theoretical points practically with a different real-time scenarios. I will cover the microservices and what are the challenges you have to face in the microservices environment. Remember, database is not centralized for all the microservices. Every microservice is having its own database. So how to manage the database transactions across multiple microservices, how to communicate one microservice with another microservice, how to do the database transactions across the different databases, how. That also one of the biggest challenge in the microservice, how we are going to manage it. There is a concept called the Saga transaction model, Saga transaction. It is one of the design pattern, Saga. You have to use that pattern in our microservices to manage database transactions, to support for ACID properties, atomicity, consistency, isolation, durability. To satisfy all the properties, we can implement the Saga transaction model. So that also will be covered in our microservices concept. So now let's come to what is Spring Boot. Spring Boot is a framework. Spring Boot is a framework which was implemented on the top of Spring Framework. Spring Boot is a framework which was implemented on the top of Spring Framework. So what are the features of the Spring Framework? We have dependency injection or inversion of control, IOC. What are the modules we have in the Spring Framework, like Spring Core module, Spring Web module, Spring AOP module, Spring Jdbc module, Spring Security module. All these modules are available in the Spring Boot also. The only thing is Spring Boot framework is designed to overcome some of the problems coming from the Spring Framework, and also to develop a microservice based application. For these two reasons, the Spring Boot framework has been introduced. Okay, so what was the prerequisite to learn Spring Boot? What was the prerequisite to learn the Spring Boot, guys? In order to learn the Spring Boot, you must have some minimum knowledge on the Spring Framework. You must know what is dependency injection, what are the Spring containers we have, just like a Spring Core module. If you know some basics of the Spring Framework, you can learn Spring Boot. You can come to this, you can join this Spring Boot microservices course. You can join this course. Okay, so that is very, very important, guys. So Spring Boot microservices Docker, Spring Boot microservices Docker, this combination is a very good market in the IT industry. You will get excellent jobs by based on this architecture model, the Spring Boot microservices, and how we are going to implement it. Okay, guys. So that is the most important and interesting point, guys. And also, I would like to talk about that's it about for our today's demo, guys. And let me know any questions. Before the questions, I will tell you the course duration. Duration of the course duration is 45 days to 2 months is the course duration. Every day course 1.5 hour course. 1.5 hour is the duration of the course every day. So it will take 45 days to 2 months. And prerequisite, I already told you about what is the importance of the course and all, and how, and all those things we discussed as of now. Okay, guys. So could you please ask any questions? Any questions,
Okay.
please?
Yeah, for microservice, to learn microservice, should I have knowledge on the RESTful services as well? Because I don't have a knowledge on the web services.
Yeah, even though if you don't have the knowledge on the web services, no problem. You can learn.
Okay.
Hello, sir. Can you tell me the difference between a microservice and web service?
Come again.
Sir, can you tell me a difference between the microservice and web service?
Microservices and
Web services.
web services are the concept. Web services concept only we are using in our microservice architecture model. So microservice is encapsulating the single functionality. We are going to write only the single functionality in the microservice. A microservice is an architecture model. It is a software architecture model to break down your heavy application logic into mini components, a micro components to that. So that is what a microservice actually meant for. Okay. And even though if you are not having the knowledge on what are web services, if you already have a knowledge on web services, no problem at all. You can join the course. So there is no relation. But to enter into the Spring Boot, you must have some minimum knowledge on the Spring framework. You must know some basics on the Spring framework. And even though if you don't know the basics of the Spring framework, if you have some advanced Java knowledge, Jdbc, Servlet, or JSP, if you have some basic knowledge on advanced Java or something like that, then also you are good to learn for this Spring Boot microservices. Docker also I am going to cover. Docker also. Okay.
Hello.
Morning, sir. So my question is, are we going to cover any project into this, or we are just going to cover the concepts?
Sorry, your voice is not see.
Is it audible now?
Much good actually. You can please type in the chat. That's good for me to whatever the question you have. Please type it. I will answer. Please type, guys. Whatever the questions you have, please type it. I will answer. Yeah, you can speak now, guys. Please speak now.
So my question is, are we going to cover any project at the end, or are we just going to cover the concepts of microservices and Docker?
Yeah, microservices, Docker will cover according to the examples only, but project related things, I will explain the scenarios. Okay? What I have real-time different cases, I will explain it, but I will not show you any kind of problem. But what type of scenarios we faced, or what are the challenges we faced while developing this microservices? All these points I will put in a different examples. If time is there, I will show you my working examples also. Okay, that also I will try to show you.
Thank you.
And sir, when this batch actually started, from tomorrow or tomorrow also is demo lecture? Hello?
Yes, AWS EC2 will take care about the scaling requirements. You can do the scaling the stuff. You can do it.
Hello, sir. When this batch is actually started, from tomorrow or today?
Okay. Any more questions, guys? Anyone is having any doubt? So that time is obviously 11 o'clock only. 11 to 12:30 for this course. And that is today onwards that introduction I started. And consider from today onwards. Actually, no demo system. So, the discussion started as a introduction to input only. Just given a brief idea today, what is about that? You can count from today onwards. 45 days to 2 months it will take. Notes, my material is there. Example, what are the applications and developing in the class? All the examples I published in the Google Drive. At the end of the day, that means every day of the class, I can take the Google Drive link in the beginning. You can use the Drive link till the end of the last class. All the examples are published is there only, including my notes. If you want to write any running points by yourself, you can write it. My material is there. Provide the notes and examples also I will upload in Google. Okay, guys? Any more questions? Okay, guys. Hope everyone is clear. Tomorrow we'll continue with the discussion. 11 o'clock, based on the management transformation, and start the session. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tomorrow. Tomorrow.
Thank you.